What I would like to do is I sent in a paper and I would like to highlight three things. I would like, in short, say something about organizational sustainability. I would like to highlight the AQ BLSC. And third, I would like to advocate the use of contact-based sustainability and the use of contact-based metrics developed by my friend McElroy. I made a reference model for you to see which elements I'm actually trying to talk about. Because organizational sustainability is actually a capability with two aspects. The first is the organization. Should I be putting it up a little bit higher? Yeah? Okay. The first is actually the organization's ability to adapt to environmental challenges, adaptation. And the second one is to interact with the environment in a healthy way. And that's actually the way that, in such a way that the organization doesn't degrade levels of resources beyond the levels needed by humans for their own well-being. So in this reference model, I actually try to highlight these two capabilities and using their main underlying concepts using these two cycles. We focus on the sustainability of organizational operations. It's not products, we look at operations. And you might see that organizational operations have an actual impact on vital capitals. Capitals can be seen as natural capital, human capital, social capital, and constructed capital. These kind of capitals provide a flow of goods and services needed and used for well-being. And it is so that actually internal and external stakeholders appropriate these flow of services. And it leads to a certain kind of well-being. And depending on the well-being, stakeholders have a specific effective response and behavior regarding the organizations. I plotted here the social contract regarding stakeholders, although that's often implicit. But you might see that actually when it is about the normative aspect of impacts, that it's very important to have stakeholder engagement. That you talk to stakeholders and that the result is expressed in certain specific duties and obligations of an organization to have impact on well-being and also to have, to be incorporated in the way organizational operations are done. Actually, most of the time, organizations cycle through this element regarding their normal business processing situation and solving all kinds of behavioral gaps. And actually, this circle is about knowledge in use, old knowledge in use. And you might even say it's about the knowledge of sustainability in use. But every now and then, there is a gap. You might say there is a knowledge gap. And organizations have to develop new kinds of knowledge. And that knowledge processing is actually done through this cycle. And especially by processes like knowledge production, knowledge claim evaluation, and knowledge integration, by which the organization develops new knowledge to be used in the daily business process situations. Unfortunately, our learning systems and knowledge processing systems in place in organizations are rather dysfunctional and unsustainable, this part. I would love to tell you more about it, but actually this is not the right time and place to do so. And unfortunately, I will not elaborate on that any further. But if we should look at what Peter Searcy has to say about learning, and we briefly look at that, he actually says that all learning is about, integrates thinking and doing. Humans are actually habitual creatures, and most of our learning is reactive learning, this picture. This means that our thinking is governed by established mental models, which actually we download in a split second whenever there is a problem occurs. And our doing is governed by established habits of action. And actually in our organizations we see the same pattern. It's always, learning is always mainly reactive learning, routine learning. What Searcy advocates is that we should have deeper kinds of learning. We should actually have deeper kinds of learning, and we should have a deeper intelligence, which leads to an increasing awareness of the whole, or the systems of which the organization is part of. It creates a deeper awareness of the larger whole. And you can see this actually, it's about deeper levels of learning, deeper levels of intelligence. And here, it's actually here you have the system, so you have to be in contact with the systems at a deeper level. And actually, it creates increasing awareness of the larger whole, and both as it is and as it is evolving. Actually, this part, thinking. And it leads to actions which actually become part of creating alternative futures regarding the environment and the way the organization should react to that in order to promote the health of the organization, of the environment. In our paper, I haven't seen it before, but I have submitted the paper, you may get it. We actually developed an adaptive maturity model to describe the emergence and the evolutionary development of performance scorecards. We actually had a kind of different levels identified. And if we combine these different levels with this kind of picture, we get the following result. Actually, I plotted our adaptive maturity model here, and it is from financial metrics, balanced scorecard, adaptive scorecard, up to the AQ-BLSC, which is a scorecard which I would like to highlight a little later. I will not go into detail regarding all these different levels. You can read that in the paper. But financial metrics, they focus on operational processes and on operational measures, and in this case, the financial ones. The balanced scorecard, level down, actually expands these operational measures using more dimensions than financial. So actually it's more holistic. But notice that both financial metrics and balanced scorecards are actually only about reactive learning. The adaptive scorecard adds deeper creative levels to the performance scorecard. It adds intelligence or adaptation processes to the operational processes. And it actually introduces a new set of measures, intelligent measures, like measures about the adaptive capacity of an organization, and measures about the outcomes of processes like knowledge production and knowledge integration, etc. Our final level, the AQ-BLSC, links both the operational and the intelligence processes with the external systems of the organization, focusing on the external impacts on the world as the organization interacts with its external systems. The triple bottom line is used here as an organizing principle for these measurements, thereby replacing the original dimensions used within the balanced scorecard. I will now go to the second part, namely, actually as we started, me and my friends, to discuss this scorecard, we started from the knowledge life cycle, and we ended up with a different kind of view of organizational performance scorecards. And actually our life cycle approach enables us, managers to design more complex scorecards to account for more variables and to access more types of organizational performance. So it's not only about performance regarding financial, environmental, social, and economic performance, but it's also about performance, about learning, knowledge, organizational intelligence, and organizational adaptation. Actually, the AQBLSC is a tool for measuring business performance, so not only focusing on the standard metrics, such as financial, customer business process, and employee development, as one often encounters in the balanced scorecard. It also evaluates, therefore, a firm's organizational learning and intelligence, whether it be routine learning processes or deeper creative learning processes. It addresses, also evaluates social responsibility issues. And the third one, it also looks at the sustainability of business operations. And fourth, it looks at the adaptive capacity of an organization. And one might say that actually to survive as an organization, the adaptive capacity of an organization is of vital importance in order to learn, to innovate, and to adapt to environmental challenges. What are the benefits, before explaining how the scorecard looks, of this kind of scorecard? We think that the scorecard actually balances internal and external impacts of the organization. The original balanced scorecard didn't actually account for external impacts. We also think that the scorecard I'm going to present to you has a specific management evaluation perspective. As there is a need to have a kind of management scorecards, business units management scorecards. It provides a conceptual foundation for more sophisticated formal modeling of measures and simulation of strategic dynamics. We actually think, and Steve Cavalieri was the one who actually tested those hypotheses, who said that using ICT tools like I think could be very well applied to using this scorecard and simulating all kinds of measures and strategies. It offers greater applicability to account for the ways in which organizational complexity impacts performance, because it's very a complex affair about what we are talking about in order to measure organizational performance, and it's actually also combining that complexity and providing more applicability in order to show impacts. It builds a foundation for formulating more sophisticated business strategies, and also it adopts a broad systems view approach that offers a high probability of achieving organizational sustainability and adaptability. It goes deeper than the scorecards we reviewed in the past. What does it look like, this scorecard? I already told you we went through a different kind of levels, and in the paper, if you read it, you see how we actually jump from level 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, what things we changed, what things we added, and this is actually the scorecard we finally ended up with. Horizontally, it differentiates between operational performance measures and intelligent performance measures, or between reactive learning and deep creative learning, as I spoke about before. Operational processes are the primary and secondary processes in place. And intelligence processes are processes regarding adaptation and learning. And here it is about people who are engaging in knowledge creation and sustainable innovation. One level down, we introduced doing-managing dichotomy. As I said, there is a growing need for executive scorecards. And one level further down, we introduce process and outcome categories, to which we later added an impact category, as outcome is not the same as impact. In this picture, I left out the 4 columns with process indicators to highlight the impact approach, which is my third topic to explain. We replaced the original 4 balanced scorecards perspective with 4 bottom lines to organize these metrics. And as the original balanced scorecard didn't actually account for external impact, we added external stakeholders besides internal stakeholders to the non-financial bottom lines. And this is what for these 3 lines. There is no such distinction in the financial bottom line because whether a shareholder is an employee or not is actually irrelevant to the organization's duty and obligations to have impact on shareholder value. I think one final remark, you can read it in the paper in more detail. I actually think that this scorecard illustrates very well that knowledge creation, that's actually here, knowledge creation is actually an innovation as well, is mainly about the financial bottom line in mainstream organizations. Instead of creating new knowledge and innovation to keep organizational operations in line within the ecological limits or meeting all kinds of societal needs. Now let's look at impact, these columns. I'm now going to the third topic of my speech. I'm trying to advocate the use of context-based metrics in line with the scorecard I have just shown. Because how do we get numbers on those impact columns of our scorecard? And how do we get now real about measurement? And how can we size up the triple bottom line, or these 3 non-financial bottom lines? Well, here we advocate the use of a capital-based theory, explain it later, and the use of McElroy's tools, a quotient-based approach to sustainability with context-based metrics. I will address this impact tool next, and I start first with explaining what we mean by capital-based theory. I already told you a little about it. I mentioned it before, but here is a general picture about the capital-based theory of sustainability to which we subscribe. And capital can be seen as a stock of anything that yields the flow of valuable goods and services to humans and non-humans who in turn rely on that for their own well-being. And there are a lot of scholars who already wrote and talked about it a lot. I mentioned Costanza, Meadows, Daly, Porritt, McElroy, you name it. Natural capital actually produces natural resources and ecosystem services. And this is generally fixed in supply. My friend McElroy coined the term anthrocapital, and it refers to anthropogenic capital, which consists of human, social, and constructed capital. And unlike natural capital, anthro capital is human-made. So we can decide always to produce more of it if we want to. The flow of goods and services and the subjective appropriations by individuals and collectives results in levels of human well-being. Here, in line with the capital theory approach, in this sheet we mapped the vital capitals to our quadruple bottom lines. Each bottom line is actually connected to its own specific kind of capitals. And you might note that we see the economic bottom line just as a type of social bottom line, as it is also a function of impacts on anthro capital. You might as well call this one, these capitals might call anthro-economic capital, as it relates to the functioning of economies. What happens if we add organizations to the mix? Adding organizations to this vital capital-based theory leads to the following causal theory of well-being. Organizations have a positive or negative impact on the stock of vital capitals, on the carrying capacity actually on the stock of vital capitals, which have a positive and negative effect on human well-being. The focus of contact-based sustainability management is on the impact of organizational operations on vital capitals, as this falls within the responsibility of organizations. So our focus is on the blue part, on this part, where we advocate the use of contact-based metrics. So if we have to choose metrics, we advocate the use of contact-based metrics regarding this blue part. Our focus is therefore not on measuring well-being as such. I think other people might be talking about that during this conference, but we focus on measuring this. Actually measuring on the contribution of organizations towards the sustainability of underlying systems which are needed to achieve human well-being. So it's about this part, measuring this part. It's about contact-based metrics. And what are actually contact-based metrics? Contact-based metrics are measures of sustainability performance that express impacts on social and environmental resources in the world, relative to what such impacts ought to be in order to ensure human well-being. I'll give an example later. Actually, it's grounded in the context of actual social and environmental conditions in the world. And we might say they are literal measures. So it's about absolute measures, not relative. It's also, you actually might compare it that one is either pregnant or one is not pregnant. So actually we're looking for that kind of measure. As I said, we see sustainability as a function of actual impacts over normative impacts, and I'm going to explain that with an example. And it's actually an example about an environmental area of impact, the use of fresh water by a Fortune 500 company. I thought it was DuPont. Let's look at this as an example of sustainability reporting with and without context included. in this graph shows the annual use of fresh water at DuPont in annual gallons consumed per capita. It's in millions. The published report showed that in the year 2001, it was 3.01. In 2002, it was 268, and in the year 2003, it was 257. With this information, what conclusions can we draw regarding DuPont's sustainability in these years shown? It seems that things are going better. Some may say that sustainability has improved, or that things are becoming more sustainable. But is it also sustainable in a more literal sense? Here you have, once again, the DuPont report, but now with actual context added. The blue columns are the gallons per capita available on Earth, which is the sustainability threshold. Performance above this threshold is unsustainable. So the conclusion has to be that although things are getting better, DuPont's operations regarding fresh water use were unsustainable in these 3 years shown. What we just did was looking at the ecological freshwater footprint of DuPont and compared the actual use of water with the standard of performance, grounded in its context, the actual fresh water conditions in the world. Context-based metrics take the form of quotients, where the actual impact with the actual impact as numerator and the normative impact as denominator. In our example, DuPont's actual use of natural capital or fresh water as a subset was the numerator, and the empirical limits of water supply and DuPont's fair share was the denominator. The ecological fresh water quotient at DuPont was greater than 1.0, which means it's unsustainable. A score of equal or less than 1.0 would have meant that operations are sustainable. Natural capital is generally fixed in supply, as we have one Earth. And the goal is to manage demand or use. But unlike natural capital, anthropic capital is human-made. And we can always produce more if we choose to, as I have said before. The goal here is to manage supply too. But it also means that the logic changes regarding social areas of impact and calculating social footprints. For in order to be social sustainable, the quotient needs to be equal or greater than 1.0. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to explore this any further, but if you want to know more about this quotient approach and how it is used in practice, it's not the scorecard I mentioned is theory, but this tool is actually now also used in practice at organizations as Ben & Jerry's, Cabot. You can look at the website of my friend Mark McElroy. I give it to you, where to look. It's www.sustainableinnovation.org. And there is a lot of material over there which you can read. Or if you have specific questions regarding the use of this tool, just send him an email. He's quite accessible. And that's also true for my other friends. I think I'll stop now. I thank my friends because actually this came up during all kinds of discussions. You find their email addresses, and they're also very well acceptable if you want to have more information. But first go to regarding the third tool, go to the website of Mark McElroy. That's it.